Back on the SportsMax zone now, and we turn to cricket. Yeah, West Indies officially end their Cricket World Cup qualifying campaign, having failed to qualify for the showpiece event for the first time in their history. The Windies are set to face off with the unbeaten Sri Lanka on Friday. No matter the result of the game, the Windies will remain in 5th position, with Sri Lanka sitting pretty at the top. The West Indies will be without all-rounder Jason Holder and fast bowler Alzarri Joseph as they prepare for the upcoming Test series against India. Now, joining us to speak about tomorrow's match is our good friend Fazeer Mohammed. Faz, I'm reminded at this moment of the Gospel of Luke when two women went by Jesus' tomb on the third day after his crucifixion, and an angel appeared to them and asked a question which I think is applicable at the start of this discussion. Why seek ye the living among the dead? But I suppose it's a situation where fixtures have to be honored, right?
Well, it takes the dawn to come up with the scriptural reference to when we're talking about this situation. But yes, you're right. But fixtures have to be fulfilled, and it is a one-day international. The records do matter. The performances will count for something. Although I cringe whenever I hear, well, yes, we're playing for pride, because you get kind of fed up of hearing about the West Indies playing for pride after yet another embarrassing campaign, even more embarrassing now. But yeah, it has to be fulfilled, and one would hope that at least the West Indies would show a level of professionalism to ensure that they're not humiliated once again.
And it's a stretch to even say that they're playing for pride, because even in the aftermath of this result, whatever it is, pride has left the building for some time now. But speaking of their mindset heading into this final game, I mean, what do they have to prove? I suppose that they have to prove it to themselves that they are playing a team that has already qualified for the World Cup. Of course, they could easily rest a few players, but in name alone, in beating Sri Lanka, it's almost as if they will be making a statement that we really should have been there with you.
I don't know how much that will be valid, Don, because the fact of the matter is that even if the West Indies were to win the match by 150 runs or by 10 wickets, it makes no difference to the fact that the West Indies have been eliminated, that they lost the matches that matter, and they lost to teams who, over the years, have clearly gone past a team that really defined all formats of the game except, well, not except, but no T20s, and we've lost that title as well. So, yeah, well, winning comprehensively won't change anything. Some people might want to say, well, if only and whatever. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, the psychology of the encounter is very different from a live fixture. Like today, for example, I was really engrossed in watching the encounter between the Netherlands and Scotland, because there was a World Cup place at stake. And you could see that in the level of desperation in both sides. And I think that is an important pointer towards the West Indies team, because I didn't see that level of desperation in the West Indies team often enough when it really mattered. So whatever they do tomorrow, it's basically just for the records.
The postmortem, of course, would have already begun in the aftermath of them confirming themselves out of the World Cup. But what has the board, what would the players have learned from this tournament? What do they take away from it, in your humble opinion?
Well, based on what they're saying, nothing. Because they keep saying the past is the past and we look forward. Every time you hear the captain or you hear senior players, they say, well, the past is the past and we move forward. So are they even going to sit back and contemplate and analyze and do so critically, rather than being preoccupied with what you often hear about, we can't be preoccupied with the negatives. There is this mantra now, you don't win and lose, you win and learn. You win and learn. You don't lose anymore. There's no failure, because that's a negative connotation and so on. Well, the West Indies would have to be among the most learning teams in international cricket right now, based on the experience. The fact is, we don't often see the benefits of all that learning when the next campaign comes around. And if this sounds exceptionally harsh, it's only because this is the reality, that for the first time in the history of this particular tournament, the two-time first-time winners, who could have almost made it a hat-trick, have not qualified for the World Cup. I don't know how you could dance around that by talking about putting the past in the past.
To be fair, though, Faz, the captain Shea Hope did suggest in his post-match interview that they've learned something from this experience. One thing for sure, he said they have to respect all of their opponents, and some of these teams that we would have previously regarded as minnows have real high-quality players that they've got to respect. Shea Hope said that.
Okay, but and I have no reason to doubt that, but if 5 years ago we were lucky to get past Scotland to get to the World Cup, and if now you are actually admitting that you again underestimated the opposition by saying that now you've learned, that you recognize that these are not minnows anymore, aren't you actually admitting that you haven't done any homework whatsoever, that you've learned nothing from the last 5 years and the chastening experience of escaping because of a bad umpiring decision and the rain against Scotland?
Point well made, Faz, because I remember a couple of weeks ago we had a discussion here on the show with Ricardo, and Ricardo was suggesting to me that he thought that the West Indies had underestimated the Netherlands. And I said, well, Ricardo, they were just beaten by Zimbabwe. Why would they underestimate the Netherlands? And he suggested that they did. But I'm seeing what you're just saying, that you can't keep underestimating teams when these teams beat you often enough for you to recognize that you should not underestimate them.
Well, at least one team we can't underestimate is Afghanistan, because they're not there anymore. They've moved past us. In the last qualifying tournament, the Afghans beat us twice.
Yes.
On the way to qualifying together with the West Indies. Afghanistan finished last in the World Cup proper in 2019. We finished second to last. And now they are not in the qualifiers in Zimbabwe because they're in the tournament proper already. So at least that's one team we don't have to be found guilty of underestimating.
Without Holder and Joseph, who have headed to the Caribbean for the India Test Series coming up, how much weaker is this West Indies team to take on Sri Lanka?
Of course it's weakened. Jason Holder, notwithstanding some of the performances, the 30 runs and the super over and so on, he's a key man. Alzari Joseph has been leading the attack. He's taken as many wickets as catches would have been dropped off his bowling, which again, another talking point if you're talking about real serious professionals. So that will impact on the team. The question is, are the 11 players who are going to take the field from 3 o'clock tomorrow morning, are they motivated by their own sense of professionalism? I'm not going to use the word pride because I'm tired of hearing playing for pride. I hear it in Trinidad and Tobago football every 5 minutes. You hear it in West Indies cricket every 2.5 minutes. So you get tired of it. The fact of the matter is, are these players professional enough that they are going to go out there to give their best for them, if only for themselves, far less talking about the badge and the history and all of that. The fact of the matter is, are we going at the end of it all, look at this tournament and properly analyze, rather than just simply say the past is the past, we'll get some couple of statements from Cricket West Indies and then we move right along? Because remember, in just a few days' time, the series against India begins. So because these series are now so crammed together, you could almost forget what happened the last time around. And that's one of the ills of the present schedule, where you can easily go past a disappointment like this, as crushing as it has been for the West Indies.
Faz, I've never met anyone who has taken a political poll. And I've also never met anyone who has read a manager's report. How interesting do you think that report is going to be? Because, before I come to that, have you ever actually read a manager's report?
Yes, I have. I read the manager's report from 1995. You might recall that disastrous tour where Brian Lara abandoned the team, where Carl Hooper walked out on the team, where Jimmy Adams had to be disciplined towards the end. 4 players had to face the disciplinary hearing. And then subsequent to that, Brian Lara pulled out of a tour of Australia later that year. So yeah, I have read them, but whether they are acted upon, whether they make any difference to the directors, to the decision makers in West Indies cricket, I would say a flat no, because the evidence suggests that they just shove them aside and get busy with their politicking. That's what West Indies cricket is all about. The politicking while the standards continue to slide.
It's interesting because I believe that probably some things can be done, or a few more things can be done if these reports are actually made public. And we know that when a backlash begins, especially on social media, certain things are done. We can even take a case of Draymond Green and Jordan Poole and their fight behind closed doors, and it was going to be swept under the carpet until it came out to the media, and then they're like, we need to do something about it. Do you think that something similar has to be done in terms of West Indies cricket and this manager's report?
If it takes outrage on social media to go viral, to get the decision makers in West Indies cricket to act now, given what would have transpired in Zimbabwe, if it takes that, then they should all resign. We often hear this call, this one should be fired, this one should resign, and so on. We don't have that culture in the Caribbean. But if it takes a social media storm to get the decision makers in Cricket West Indies to wake up from their politically induced slumber after this humiliation, then they might as well close down Factory Road in Antigua and throw away the key.
Well, President Shallow is in the deep end at the moment. So the question is, based on the fact that his presidency has just started, do you think that he can actually make an impact? Because he's at his most popular, you would say. I mean, there are hardly any strikes against him. So I think he has nothing to lose to really drive the hammer down on what has taken place here.
In contrast, he has everything to lose because, again, if you understand how people are elected in Cricket West Indies, it's all about horse trading. Just remember that Ricky Skerritt and Kishore Shallow were elected by an act of treachery. Dave Cameron was given the word by the Windward Islands representatives that he would have their vote. Turns out that he didn't. So again, it's all about horse trading. The thing is that we I suppose, naively believe that for these individuals, performance, reputation, history, legacy, what it means to Caribbean people actually resonate. They are just like the garden variety politicians we have all around the Caribbean who are in fact gathered in Port of Spain over the last few days, causing a lot of traffic for us ordinary citizens. That all they are preoccupied with is office and the trappings of office. And because he's just come into office, he has to keep those who would have gotten into office very happy. That is his priority.
Faz, we saw toward the back end of Cameron's reign where Dr. Keith Mitchell from Grenada, Keith Rowley from Trinidad and Tobago, and Ralph Gonzalez from St. Vincent and the Grenadines campaigned vigorously to get rid of Cameron. We see the CARICOM Heads of Government Conference this week in your Trinidad and Tobago, a story coming out with CARICOM leaders pledging support to the Cricket West Indies to help to rebuild the sport. Does that grab you, or is it the same CARICOM talk shop that we keep hear the criticisms about?
Well, you've answered the question yourself, Lance. It's just a talk shop. They're just words because, again, a couple of points. The ICC always makes a big deal about political interference. But again, they do it with one eye because throughout the Asian subcontinent, the politics is intertwined completely and they do nothing about it. So that's the hypocrisy. Secondly, the moment any politician tries to interfere with the administration of Cricket West Indies, CWI will go running to the ICC and get that sort of support. More importantly, though, Caribbean politicians are about grandstanding. It's about you. I think the word used at the time when you mentioned Ralph Gonzalez, Keith Mitchell, and Keith Rowley, it was about a grand coalition or a grand assembly. It's always some grand something or the other with big fanfare and fancy clothes and long-winded speeches and so on. We need to move away from that. We need to grow up as people and understand that action is what matters, not all of this fancy rhetoric and fancy old talk.
Yeah, finally, Faz, you just described Cameron's removal back in March 2019 as treachery. Is it then that retribution has reached the Skerritt and Shallow crew?
Well, what can I say? If you do something in a particular way, don't be surprised if it comes back to bite you. But again, this is the nature of things. I recall Wes Hall and Aloy Likwai going up for the post of president and vice president 2000, 2001, around that time. That was before Wes actually got the post. And they were convinced that they had gotten the vote because they had gotten the approval of a number of members, only to lose out. So this act of treachery is nothing new. This is how cricket West Indies and West Indies cricket operates at an administrative level.
All right, Faz, we're going to leave it there. I hope you'll be up in the morning watching Sri Lanka West Indies so you can talk adequately to us about it on tomorrow's show.
I'll do my best.
Okay, Faz. Break time. Back with more on the zone after this.